history of the superhero, of the graphic novels and comic strips, begins with the marginalized artists in the 1930s, specifically with Jewish writer Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, the creators of Superman, as you learn in the documentary that you just finished watching. These two 17-year-olds who are obsessed with science fiction and fantasy create the hero in many ways that they wish they could be, right? As Jerry Siegel later points out, they were interested in girls, but girls aren't interested in them. So they create this superhero immigrant who reflects their cultural background, a Moses with the strength of Hercules, who is every woman's dream, and ultimately becomes the all-American hero. It took 6 years to get picked up. Will Eisner in the documentary remembers rejecting it. Oh my goodness, I rejected Superman. Imagine what that would have felt like. But eventually, it gets started in Action Comics, which becomes DC Comics. And the golden age of comic books begins with this. Clark Kent, the mild-mannered alter ego of Superman, has these same struggles that Siegel says he and Shuster encountered when they were teenagers. They're struggling with women, they're getting bullied, they can't stand up for themselves. And in that way, the alter ego is making Superman accessible to the readership. And more than that, unlike other heroes that were proliferating in comics prior to Superman, heroes that were set, say, in the Middle Ages or the Wild West of the 1800s, Clark Kent and Superman live in the everyday world of the 1938 reader, and they are confronting that Great Depression era corruption that audience is dealing with. Superman thus becomes a hero of the liberal social agenda, and when he's joined by Batman, the DC universe begins. Early comic book writers were, without exception, almost written by men from working class families who struggled through the Great Depression. And the heroes they create reflect those struggles that they lived through. And the comics that are successful are the ones that continue to evolve. In the late 1930s, early 1940s, superheroes are going to start battling the Nazis and fascists. In the 1960s and 70s, brooding heroes like the Hulk and Spider-Man are going to resist authorities and resonate with the angst of teenagers and anti-war sentiments during Vietnam. In the 1980s and 90s, comic heroes are resisting the rising corporate culture. And in 2001, when the Two Towers are hit by terrorists, comics are transformed again, as are reflected in things like the Avengers movie, created by Marvel in 2012. How do you think the battle for New York in Avengers reflects what went on in this film? See, comic books and their superheroes are often cultural reflections of expectations. The gender construction, sexuality, race, ethnicity, and national identity that the perceived readership wants. And this can make them mediums to uphold social biases and stereotypes, but it can, ironically, also make them a powerful medium for social justice if they make a commentary on those cultural expectations or provide alternatives. And so in this way, comic books can work in two very different ways, depending on the audience and the intentions of the writers. And that irony, that conundrum, is what we're going to be seeing again and again and again this week. That is these different ways, often adverse, opposing ways, that the comic functions.